Okay, so the recording has started, and okay, so let's start. So do you have any queries from the previous classes? Anything?
No, I read up on Jira.
Okay.
The last class. Yeah, that was the last class.
Okay, and anything from the SOAP UI and all?
SOAP UI is a big question for me. SOAP UI, I would request at the end, and I will request if you can take one more class on SOAP UI, not now, but at the end of this course.
Okay, okay. So what kind of queries or issues you are facing?
That happened when I was doing hands-on. Like sometimes I don't know how to delete these files, sometimes I don't know how to add, but I did with your audio. And even then I'm getting stuck up somewhere in the middle of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for deleting or like adding,
Just one class on SOAP UI.
let me just share my screen. I'm sharing my screen. So okay.
Can you show me from that new SOAP project over there?
Yeah.
This one.
So to create the SOAP or REST project, you can click on this SOAP. So that will create a new SOAP project for you. So here you can give any kind of name like test project and all. And then here you need to provide the WSDL. So if you have the link of the WSDL, you can provide that. Otherwise, you can just browse that.
Yeah.
So let me see if I have any file. I don't have. I need to check for the WSDL links. Do you have the link handy?
No, I tried to put and paste from the ones that you had provided in the class. And it says like this error, invalid and all that.
Okay, just a minute.
I did the calculator once.
Mm-hmm.
But then another link I tried to copy and paste it. I tried many times. It was invalid.
Yeah, this is the one, I guess. Yes. So if I copy it, then I click on this SOAP. I give the project name as a calculate test. Provide the initial WSPL here, and I click on OK. So this will create the structure for me. So this is not required. I can just remove it. So for that, I have this remove option. I can just remove that. So that will remove the files from here. So then I have all these different operations. So this is for add, this is for divide, multiply, subtract. Now what you can do is you can create the test suite out of that. So you can right click here and then you will get generate test suite option here. If you click here, so this will give you the options. So click OK, OK, and it will create the test suite for you. And under the test suite, you'll have the test case, and then under that you'll have the test steps. So if you just click here, so then you need to make these changes and all, and you can do the operations. So whatever queries you are having, you can like note it down or make a list of that, and then you can provide it to me so that I can look at that one by one and I can provide the resolution to you. Okay. Okay, fine then. So today we are going to talk about different test metrics. Okay. So starting from the day one, we have talked about different. Uh, we have talked about the quality of the software, right? So, what is this test metric then? So, this test metric provide a
I can't
measurement of
see
the.
anything on this. I can't see anything on the screen. It's
Yeah,
blank.
there is nothing right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So today's topic is basically the test metrics. So these are the topics that we are going to cover today. The first one is what is the software testing metrics, what is software test measurement, why test metrics, metrics lifecycle, types of manual test metrics, example of software testing metrics, and agile metrics. So basically here, like this test metrics are prepared by either the project manager or like the product manager, and this is not like you need to prepare all these metrics and all, but for you it is important to know how these metrics are calculated and what are the different test metrics. So while the test manager or the test lead or the project manager or the product manager will prepare this testing metrics, so they are going to ask the data. They are going to fetch the data from you, and you are the one who is going to provide the data to them to create this test metrics. So during it starts from the planning phase, when you start writing your test cases, when you start writing your test scenarios. From there only the generation of test metrics will get started. Okay, how many test cases you are writing, then in the execution phase how many test cases you are executing, how many are left to be executed, and out of that how many test cases are passing, how many test cases are failing, how many bugs are getting generated. And even after releases, okay, once the software is in production, is deployed to the customer side, even then also if the customer is finding any bugs, or in the production time if any production bugs are coming, so out of that also this testing matrix gets generated. I mean, how many bugs are getting logged by the customer during production. So from that also we are going to get a lot of test metrics. So we are going to see what are those different type of test metrics today, and there are some formulas also that you need to remember. Those are pretty simple. I mean, those are very simple. So you'll get to know by the name of the test metric itself. So yeah, so from the interview perspective, you might be asked that what are the different test metrics do you know? Okay, so the names you need to remember first of all. Then secondly, once you name those test metrics, then out of that they might ask you, okay, what is how this particular test metric is calculated? Can you please tell me? So in that way, the questions can come during the interview. Okay. Okay. So what is software testing metric? So what do you understand by metric?
Some calculation.
Yeah. So metric is basically
Measurement.
measuring an attribute, right? Like when we talk about the weight, so kilogram, that is a metric for measuring the weight, right? Similarly, in software, metric provides you the measurement of the quality, right? So what is the status of the quality of your product, so or project? So that will be defined by the software metrics. Okay, so that it is basically standard of measurement of a quality of the software. And not only quality, like what are the improvements that are required in the project or in the product or in the process that the particular team is following. So those can be defined through this software testing metrics. So not only in the testing, in the development side also we have different kind of metrics, and I guess we have already discussed about those, if you remember, like there was some complexity analysis, and in the during the unit testing we talked about different calculations, right, if you remember. So that is how the development metrics are also generated. uh, the path coverage, the uh, different type of loop coverage, so all those things we discussed, so those comes under the metrics as well, but that is from the development point of view. From the testing side we have different metrics, and this provides you the overall measurement of the quality of the software or of the product or project. Okay, so test metrics help to determine what type of enhancements are required, what kind of improvements are required in order to create a defect-free or high-quality software product. Now, when you talk about defect-free, software can't be 100% defect-free, but as your test metrics go, as you find more and more bugs during your execution time, as you write more and more test cases, as you cover uh, most of the functionalities of the uh, product in your test cases, the more quality you are going to produce in that particular product or in that particular project, and that will actually increase the quality of the product, and in that way it will improve the overall product or overall project. Now the second thing is how this software metrics can improve the process. So the thing is, suppose you are testing a particular product, and during the execution of the test cases you have found, say, 20 bugs. Okay, you have logged those 20 bugs, and those 20 bugs has been fixed, and you have retested those, and now it has been deployed. So once the software is deployed or it's in the production, suppose the customer has logged, say, 5 or 10 bugs during the production. So now if you see, while you have tested it, you have found or you have logged 20 bugs, but when it has gone to production, the customer has found 10 more bugs. Okay, so the ratio is pretty high. So in that case, a particular audit has to be done, or it has to be check that why this many bugs has been missed during your test case execution, right? And so what was the issue? It's not mandatory that the issue was from the testing side, right? It might happen that the whatever was the requirement from the client side, that was not communicated well. Okay, and whatever documentations and requirements were given to the development and the testing team, the development team and testing team has worked based on that, but at the end the customer requirement is something else which was not documented, and that's why the developers didn't develop that, the testers didn't test that, and that's why there is a difference in between the expectation and the actual output, and that's why during the production the issues are coming. Okay, so that means there is a issue in the process itself. It's not like the testers have missed some of the testing, or it's not like the developers didn't develop that. So no, the issue is not in the development or not in the testing. The issue is in the process itself. The customer is not able to provide you the correct requirement, and now if the development team or the testing team is not having the correct requirement, how are they supposed to develop or test expected product? So that is not possible. So that means there is an issue in the process itself, the way the requirements are coming to the developers and the uh, testing team, and how those are getting documented, how those are getting followed. So there is an issue in that. So that requires an audit and revisit, and then that process has to be changed or modified wherever it is required, right? So this particular software testing metrics will give you those insights, that where you can actually improve your uh, the whole development and testing, where the testing team is lagging, where the development team is lagging. So all those details can be found out from this different type of metrics that we are going to talk today. Okay. So measurement is a quantitative indication of extent, amount, dimension, capacity, or size of some attribute of a product or process. Uh, Test measurement example is, one of the example is total number of defects that you have found. So that is one of the test measurement. There are different type of test metrics that we are going to talk about today. Then why test metrics? So generation of software test metrics is most important responsibility of the software test lead or manager. So it's most probably it will be the software test lead or software test manager who is going to develop this or generate this test metrics. But as a software tester, you need to provide the data to the test lead or to the test manager, so that they can generate the this different metrics. And another thing that is important here is uh, there are different tools as well which will actually help you to provide this report. So like Jira. So in Jira, you will get the report of how many test cases are executed, how many test cases are failed, how many bugs you have logged, how many bugs are fixed, and how many bugs are retested, how many bugs are not fixed yet. So all these reports can be generated by Jira as well. So the tool that you are using as a defect management tool or test management tool, so you are going to get the data from that particular tool as well. Okay. So test metrics, where they are used. So these are used to take the decision to for the next phase of activities, such as estimate the cost and schedule of future project. So how is it going to help you with the estimation? So suppose you have kind of say 50 test cases in your testing of this phase, of the current phase. Okay. And now initially it was estimated that it will take around 15 days to 21 days, so 2 weeks to 3 weeks to complete the execution. But while executing, you can see that it's taking almost 1 or 1.5 months. Okay. So from there, you can get the idea that how much time is it taking to, execute the test case. So once you are executing the test cases, you will have the bugs log, then the bugs will be fixed by the developer, and then you need to retest those. Then if some regression testing is required, you're going to perform that regression testing as well. So this will actually give you the whole estimation on the schedule, right? And from that, you can also forecast that in the next phase of development, how much time it might require to complete the testing, right? So you'll be able to take the decision, or you can estimate for the next phase of activities as well from this test matrix. Now the second thing is understand the kind of improvement required to success the project, that we have already discussed now. How can we understand that what kind of improvements are required, whether it's a process related improvement or it's a development, from the development side we need the improvement. So because Suppose the requirements were clear, but while you are testing the product, you are getting a lot of bugs, right? So now when you are getting a lot of bugs, so the questions has to be arised, that why this many bugs are coming. So what was the issue? So then you know the development team will be asked that why there are so many bugs coming from the testing. Did you do the unit testing? I mean, it will be asked to the developers, obviously, that did you do the unit testing before providing the build to the testers? Did you understand the requirement correctly? Right? Because if the developers are not understanding the requirement correctly, then how are they going to develop the expected product? They won't be able to develop the expected product, and then there will be bugs. Now suppose another thing might happen, that the developers have developed it properly, but the testers don't have the clear understanding of what is the expected behavior. And then suppose you have written the test cases in a wrong way, right?
Mm.
Now if you have written the test cases in the wrong way, then obviously the test cases are going to fail, right?
Mhm.
But the expected behavior is correct. The actual behavior, what is coming out from the product, that is correct. But as your understanding is not correct, as a tester your understanding is not correct, and you have not written the test cases in the proper way or in the correct way, so what will happen? The test cases will fail. You will log the bugs, but those defects or bugs will be marked as um, what? Those will be marked as uh, you know incorrect defect, right?
Mhm.
So during the defect life cycle, we have seen that whenever you are logging any bug, so the developer will first check that whether the bug is correct or not, whether the defect is
Mhm.
correct or not, it's valid or invalid. So now if you are logging those defects which are invalid, so the developer will continue to mark those as invalid defect. Okay.
Mhm.
So now the management, the test lead or the test manager will see from this test metric that this many bugs are getting marked as invalid, right? So what's the reason? So then an audit will be performed, and the test team will be asked that why this many bugs are getting marked as invalid. So is there gap in the understanding whether the test cases are correct, right? So these are the scope of improvement, right?
Mhm.
So in this way the test metrics are very much helpful for the improvement of the process, for the improvement of the overall quality of the software.
Mhm.
And finally, that it also helps to take a decision on the process or technology to be modified or not. So as an example, like suppose the developers are using a particular technology, okay, for the software. Now due to that particular technology you are getting a lot of bugs, right? But if you use some other technology, it will make the software more efficient. uh, you will get more less number of defects out of that. So in that case also it is helping to take a decision. So this test metrics will help you or help the management to take a decision on the process or technology if some modifications are required or not.
Mhm.
Okay. So mostly this kind of decisions are taken by the management. You are only going to provide the data to generate this test metrics. Okay.
Mhm.
Any questions till now?
No, no.
Fine. So what is the importance of software test metrics? I think I have already discussed this.
Yeah.
So we can just go through this one by one. So suppose there is a project, and in the project you don't have any kind of metrics, right? So then how the management is going to measure the work that has been done by you, okay, or how the management is going to measure the quality of the work that has been done by you, right? So for an example, if you see here, like as a test analyst, suppose you need to design the test cases for 5 requirements, okay. After that, after the test cases are designed, you need to execute those test cases, right? Then you need to log the defects and you need to fail the test cases whichever are failing, right? And then once the defects are resolved, you need to retest the defect and re-execute the corresponding failed test cases. So this is expected from your side. These are the tasks that you need to provide. Okay, in this scenario, if metrics are not followed, right, how a test manager is going to know that how much task is done, right? How much work is completed by you, and what is the quality of the overall software, and what is the quality of your task as well, your work as well. So suppose you have generated kind of say 25 test cases out of those 5 requirements, and then you have not logged a single defect, right? All the test cases have passed. Fine, there is no issue if you don't find a defect. There is no issue if you don't find a defect until the users or the actual customers start getting finding those defects in the production. So you have not found any defect and the customers are not finding any defect. That's fine. That's totally fine. That means the developers have done a very good work. They have developed an almost like what can I say? 100% correct software, right? A perfect software, and that's why the testers have not found any bug, and the customer from the customer side also they have not found any bug. That's totally fine. But when the situation is like this, that the testers have not found any bug, but the customer is finding a lot of bugs out of the software when it's in the deployed in the production. So there an audit is going to be performed, and there the measurement of the quality will be checked, like
Who
what
does the
was
audit?
this. So this is done by mainly the management. Okay, so this will be done by the product manager and test manager. So they are going to see and they're going to check that what was missed during the testing phase or during the development phase, which is resulting in so many defects coming from the deployment side or in the production side. Okay, so when you have this kind of test metrics, okay, so at that time you can at any point of time the management can find what is the exact status of your work. So suppose you have written 25 test cases and you have executed only 10 test cases. So 15 test cases are left to be executed, and out of those 10 test cases you have found suppose 3 bugs. Okay, so the management will have that forecast as well, that in the future out of this 10 test cases you have found 3 bugs. So in the future, once all these 25 test cases are executed, you need to again retest these bugs once these are fixed. And so if you need to retest these bugs, and again suppose you have 5 failed test cases out of those 10 test cases, so how much time will you require to execute those failed test cases again? So it will allow them to do the estimation as well, that how much time is going to be taken by the testing team to complete the testing. Okay, and this will be, this is not anything like fixed. So you have executed 10 test cases. After the execution of 20 test cases, they will again revisit that. Okay, now 20 test cases are executed, so how many test cases are failing out of that, and how many bugs have been logged? So if you are not getting any bugs in those extra 10 test cases, so that means the estimation is pretty same, right? Because you have only those 5 test cases failed. But if you are getting more bugs, so that means more test cases are going to be failed. So that means you'll need more time to execute those failed test cases. So generally, that's why this test report, when you are in the execution phase, the test manager or the test lead will generate this test report on a daily basis, and based on that, this test metrics will be changing on a daily basis as well. We can see that the test report can have the following metrics. Okay, what are those metrics? How many test cases have been designed per requirement? Okay, so for a particular requirement, you need to have multiple test cases. What will be those test cases? You will have some positive test cases, you will have some negative test cases. You need to apply the test design techniques for that. So if you remember some of the test design techniques, what were those? So there were different test design techniques like boundary value analysis,
Yes. Partitioning, equivalence partitioning, yeah.
then the
State
decision table
transition,
was there.
state transition, boundary
State
value.
transition table, yes. So these are the different test design techniques. And now when you will design your test cases according to this different test design techniques, so you will have multiple number of test cases for each requirement, right? So now if there are some requirements, say 10 requirements are there, and you have only created say 15 test cases, right? So that means you have not written all the test cases, or you have not covered all the scenarios, all the positive scenarios and all the negative scenarios. So even like if you write one positive scenario and one negative scenario, in that case also you are going to have at least 20 test
20,
cases. If there are 10 requirements, so you will at least have 20 test cases if you write one positive and one negative scenario. But actually, if you look at those different test design techniques, you are going to have at least like 4 to 5 test cases for each requirement, right? If you look at the login scenario itself, there can be kind of like 10 to 12 test cases you can at least write out of that. Like the positive scenario will have the positive, like the correct username and correct password. But when you go to the incorrect username and incorrect password, there can be different combinations of the input data, right? And for each input data, you will have a test case, and there will be different kind of errors that will be coming out, right? So in that way, like how many test cases you are designing per requirement, so this will give you, or this will give the higher management a proper idea of how the coverage is done based on the test cases written per requirement. Okay, so if each of the requirement is having at least 5 6 test cases, that means all the test cases are covering the whole requirement, right? You have covered both the positive and negative scenarios, and that means that it is providing a good test coverage, right? Then how many test cases are yet to design? Okay, so suppose there are 10 requirements and you have uh, you know written the test cases for 6 requirements, and you have got almost like 30 or say 40 test cases, right? So that will give you the idea that okay, 4 more requirements are there, so it will take around 20 to 25 more test cases to be designed, right? And then how many test cases are executed? Okay, once it is in the execution phase, so if you have 50 test cases and if you have executed 20 test cases, so there will be 30 test cases left to be executed. So how many test cases are executed? What is the time you are taking to execute those test cases? So how much time will be required more to test the rest of the test cases? Then how many test cases are passed? How many test cases are failed? How many test cases are blocked? How many test cases are not yet executed? how many defects are identified and what is the severity of those defects. So suppose you have logged 10 defects, and most of the defects are low priority or low severity defect. Okay. So in that case also we can say that the overall quality of the product is good, because you have not found any kind of high priority or high severity defect, or critical priority, critical severity defect. But when you have logged 10 defects, and say 70% or 80% of the defects are high severity or high priority defect, so that means there has to be uh, I mean, the management will raise a red flag there, that there is some issue with the software, and this many high priority, high severity bugs or defects have been logged. Okay. And finally, how many test cases are failed due to one particular defect. Okay. So suppose you have a particular defect. Suppose you are not able to log in, right? With the correct username and correct password, you are not able to log in. So now, as you are not able to log into the application, how are you going to test the rest of the test cases?
Yeah.
You won't be able to execute. So most of the test cases will either be failed or will be blocked due to that defect, right? Or suppose whenever you are trying to launch the application, okay, so you're trying to launch the application and it is getting crashed, right? It is giving you some error message. So if you are finding this kind of high priority or high severity defect, so you won't be able to even test the rest of the test cases. So that will be a blocker defect, right? And if you are getting this kind of blocker defect, so it will be reflected in the test metrics, and the management will pressurize the development team to fix that kind of defect as soon as possible. Okay. So in this way, this the test report can give you this kind of test metrics. Okay. And how this will help the test lead or manager to get the understanding of the points. So what percentage of work is completed, right? That they will get the idea. Then what percentage of work is remaining to be completed, and then what is the time that is required to complete the remaining work. Okay. Whether the project is going as per the schedule or it is lagging. So how they're going to find this? So suppose you were about to start the testing on say 1st of June, but it's already 15th of June and you have not been able to start the testing. Suppose you got the build, but when you started testing you got a broken build. What do you mean by broken build? Suppose you are trying to launch the application and it's giving you an error. So it's easy to understand that you won't be able to start the testing in that way. You have a blocker issue, and then the developers have started fixing it and they have not given the build to you after say 15 days. So that means this overall schedule of the or the timeline of the project is lagging. It's not going as per the schedule. If you have waited for 15 days and you have not been able to start the testing of the project, or you have not been able to start the execution of the test cases. So this will be reflected in the metrics, and then this will give you the overview to the test lead or the manager that okay, then there is a risk associated with that and we are not as per the schedule, and then we might not be able to complete the delivery within the given timeline. So the manager, what he will do, he will raise the alarm to the client and the stakeholders, and he will provide the necessary reasons for the delay, right? So this will help the whole team to avoid the last minute surprises. So this is how these different test metrics are going to help the overall team and overall management.
No,
Okay. Any questions till now?
no, no.
Okay, fine.
So is the test lead not monitoring all this?
Yes, the test lead will monitor all this.
If there's like 15 days delay and build is not given to you at that point, um, or rather this way, if you are 15 tests for 10 bugs, is the test lead say, hey, what's happening? Why don't you write more? Why don't you? I mean, is the test lead not looking at all that?
Yes, that's what I mean. The test lead. So see the first point, how many test cases have been designed per requirement. So once you tell them that I have written only 15 test cases for 10 requirements, so at that time only test lead will tell you that
Okay.
why there are so less number of test cases for 10 requirements. Right. So that's why I told you, as a tester you need to provide the data to the lead or management, and then based on the data they are going to generate the metrics, and then they are going to give you the feedback. Right.
Yeah.
So the moment you will provide them this data, because you are doing the actual work, so you need to provide that data to the higher management or to the test lead. So based on the data that you are providing, there are cases where you are not required to provide that data as well. Like if you are using a particular tool which gives those kind of data, which generates those kind of data automatically, so in that case the test lead can just go to that tool and he can see how many tests have you written, how many bugs have you raised, how many test cases are executed. Like in Jira will provide all this report, right? So in that case, as an individual, you don't need to provide all this data, but the test lead or the higher management can just go to that tool and they can see all this data out of there, or they can generate this test metrics out of there. Okay. Anything else?
No.
So there are different type of software metrics. Okay, and this is something that is you can say this varies project to project or organization to organization. Okay. So if you're working in a service based company, okay, you are working for a particular client, so in that case you will have different software metrics, you will have different test metrics. If you are working in a product development company, right, so there you will have different kind of metrics which will be used. Okay. So based on the organization you are working on, based on the culture or environment you are working on, they are going to use different kind of software metrics. Okay. So in case of project metrics, what are the different kind of project metrics? The first is code coverage. So code coverage is basically from the development side. Then the lead time, or what is the cost that is associated with the overall development and testing. So these are the different project metrics. There are different product metrics as well. Like if it's a product based company, if it's a product development company, and then they are selling that product to different customers. So what is the difference between a service based company and a product development company? In case of service based company, the company will have different clients, right? And the clients will tell you that, okay, I need this. Okay. And then based on that requirement, the team is going to develop, right? So that is service based companies. Okay. What is product based companies or product development companies? Product development companies will have their own R&D, right? and they will first decide, okay, we are going to develop this particular product, right? And once they develop that product, then they are going to go to the customers and the clients, and they are going to demo them that, see, we have this particular product which is useful for your business. So now whether you are going to use this particular product or not. So you can understand the difference, right? In the the service based organizations, what they will do, they are having the clients. Now the clients are telling that, okay, I need this thing, right? And then you are going to develop that particular thing. I mean, your team is going to develop that particular thing. So that means you are providing the service to a particular client. But in case of product development company, what are you going to do? You have your own R&D team, and you are going to develop the product as per your requirement. And now when you have developed your product, you are going to go to the different customers, different business, and then you are going to demo them that, see, I have developed this particular product, I have this product, and this is useful for your business in this way, right? So there is a thin lining in between the service-based companies and the product-based companies, how they actually work. So in that way, there will be different kind of software metrics for product-based companies. So what are those? Like conversion rate. I mean, suppose you had 10 customers at present time. Now you are going to make some changes. You are going to develop or add more features in your software, and then you are going to demo it to 15 more customers. Okay. So out of those 15 customers, how many customers are converted? How many customers are actually now using your software? So that gives you the conversion rate. Churn rate. What is churn rate? Suppose in this financial year you have 20 customers, okay, and then in the next financial year you have 15 customers, so 5 customers have gone away. So what is the churn rate? Then 25% is your churn rate. Initially you had 20 customers, now you have 15 customers, right? So 25% of the customers have gone away. So that will give you the churn rate. Then what is the monthly recurring revenue? What is the code or design documents? So these are the different kind of metric that will the product-based companies will have. And as a tester, I don't think you will have any involvement in this kind of metrics. Okay, because this is mostly like the management and sales metrics. Finally, you have the process metrics. So in the process metrics, there I think you'll have your involvement, like what is the time that is being required, what is the efficiency, what is the cyclometric complexity that comes from the development side, what is the ROI. So all this kind of software development process metrics will get generated. Okay, so we have one metrics lifecycle as well. So at first, what will you do? You'll do the analysis, right? The identification of metrics will be done and define the identified metrics. So the metrics will be defined, right?
Who does that?
So this one will be done mostly by you. So it can be the testers, the test analysts, because you need to provide the data to your lead or management. So if you are having a particular tool, so the test lead or test manager, they can find the data directly from that tool as well. If you don't have such tool, or the tool that being used, if the tool is not having those capabilities to generate that data, so in that case it can be the test analyst who will do the initial level of analysis and will provide the data to the test lead or the test manager. So the next phase is communicate. So once you have those test data, you will provide that data to the manager or lead. Now the manager or lead will analyze that and generate those metrics, and then they will communicate it back to the stakeholders, right? And they will also provide the feedback to the testing team. The example that you told, that suppose you have 10 requirements and you have written 12 to 13 or 15 test cases, right? And now when the manager or the test lead will have that metric, they are going to come back to you, communicate back to you that, okay, I think there are some gaps between the understanding, or the test coverage is pretty low, so you might need to revisit and write more test cases, right? Educate the testing team about the data points need to be captured for processing the metric. So the test lead or test manager will educate you that what are the different data points, how those reports need to be provided, so that they can generate the test metrics, right? So this comes under the communication. Then evaluation, so capture and verify the data, calculating the metrics value using the data captured, and finally generating the report. Develop the report with effective conclusion, distribute report to stakeholder and respective representative, take feedback from stakeholder. Okay. Okay, so next we'll see some of the different test metrics. That is pretty easy. I mean, we have already discussed about this. We'll just go through this and see if you have any query. Then we have some of the formulas that we'll see how these different test metrics get generated. And this and the agile metrics, some of the agile metrics are there, which I think we already discussed in the last class.
Bird down chart.
Yes, velocity and this we have discussed. Okay, so let's take a small break here, and after that we'll cover the rest of the things. Okay.
How was your walk? How was your walk? Oh. How was your walk? Yeah, 2 minutes. You want me to massage this?
Yeah, it's just when I was running on this foot, I think this is a little crack. So it's all right here. I have to stretch it this way.
You don't want to look at
Oh,
us.
Mom, I am going to learn to have more.
But don't tear up your body parts.
Oh, that was someone. I was running on such a
Why don't you
fast-
put some hot water?
or will I swim?
Yeah, yeah.
I said, Mom, I was at my fastest pace.
Put some ice.
Just pull it that way.
What a body particle. ഈ ലൈറ്റ് എന്നിട്ട് വിൻഡോ ഒന്ന് അടച്ചു തരാമോ?
Okay. So, I hope my screen is visible.
No. Yeah.
Okay. So now we are going to see different type of test metrics. Okay. So here we have an example that we have some data point. Okay. So these are the kind of data point that will be generated from the report, or you need to provide all this data to the management, and from there they will generate the different test metrics. Okay. So an example is given here. So suppose you have 5 requirements. Okay. And out of that 5 requirements, you have generated 100 test cases. Okay. So number of requirements are 5. Total number of test cases written for all requirements are 100. Okay. So average number of test cases written per requirement is 20. 100 divided by 5. So per requirement, you have 20 test cases almost on an average. Now you have 100 test cases. So you have executed 65 test cases. Out of this 100 test cases, you have executed 65 test cases till now. Okay. And out of these 65 test cases, only 30 test cases have passed. Right? 30 test cases have passed and 26 test cases have failed. And 9 test cases are blocked. Okay. So do you know what is the difference between failed test cases and blocked test case?
No.
Okay. So the difference between
Block
a failed
means they are not unable to run, like they have showstopper or defects.
Yes, yes. So failed test case is basically you have tested that particular test case, you have executed that test case, and due to defect the test case has failed, right? So that means failed. What is the meaning of blocked? Blocked test case is, suppose you have a failed test case, right? And for that failed test case you are already having a defect, and for that same defect some other test cases are there which you can't execute. So what will be an example? Suppose let's take the example of Amazon.com, right? In Amazon.com, suppose you are trying to search a particular product. Okay. And once you search that product, the product detail of that particular product will come. Right? Now, suppose when you are searching that product, the product is not appearing. So you will have a particular defect for that, right? And now the test cases which you have for validating the product detail page, so you won't be able to test those particular test cases because you are not even able to search that product. Now if you're not able to search that product, how are you going to go to the product detail page and you are going to test those test cases or execute those test cases?
So it's blocked.
So those particular test cases will be blocked. That means you have not even executed those test cases, and those test cases are blocked. You won't be able to execute those test cases because of a particular defect. And until that defect is fixed, you won't be able to execute these test cases. Right? So that is the difference between failed test case and blocked test case. And number of test cases unexecuted is 35 because you have 65 executed test cases, so 35 test cases are still remaining to be executed. And out of this 26 failed test cases, you have identified 30 defects. Okay. And out of these 30 defects, there are 6 critical defects. There are high priority 10 high priority defects, 6 medium priority defects, and 8 low priority defects. Right? So these are the data points that you are having. Now let's see what kind of different test metrics you can generate. So the first one is percentage of test cases executed, right? So what's the formula? The formula is very simple. Number of test cases executed divided by total number of test cases written into 100, right? So you have 100 test cases here. You have executed 65 test cases. So 65 divided by 100 into 100, that gives you the percentage. 65% of test cases are executed. Okay. Percentage of test cases not executed. So percentage of test cases not executed, what will be that? Number of test cases unexecuted is 35. So 35 divided by 100 into 100, because total number of test cases are 100 here. If the total number of test cases are 75 or 70, so it will be 35 divided by 70 or 75 into 100. Okay. Any queries?
No.
Okay. Percentage of test cases passed. Okay. So percentage of test cases passed, the formula is number of test cases passed divided by total number of test cases into 100. So here it will be 30%. 30 divided by 100 into 100. Okay, sorry. The number of test cases passed is calculated as number of test cases passed divided by total number of test cases executed. Right? Not total number of test cases. It will be total number of test cases executed. So you have executed 65 test cases, right? So 30 divided by 65 into 100. So that gives you 46%. Percentage of test cases failed. So this is again number of test cases failed divided by total number of test cases executed. Okay, into 100. Because if you have say 500 test cases and only 10 test cases are passed, so that doesn't tell you that what is the actual metric. You need to also see that how many test cases have you executed, and out of that how many test cases are passed or how many test cases are failed, right? So that gives you the actual metric or actual quality. So that's why you need to divide it by number of test cases executed, not by the total number of test cases. Okay. So percentage of test cases passed and percentage of test cases blocked. Similarly, you will get, by this similar formula. Then percentage of test cases blocked. So percentage of test cases blocked is total number of test cases blocked divided by total number of test cases executed into 100. Right?
By 67, yeah.
So 9 test cases are blocked, 65 test cases you have executed into 100. So that gives you 14%. What is the defect density? So defect density is number of defects identified divided by size. Size means number of requirements you are having. Right? So what is here? Like, what is the total number of defects you have identified? It was 30, right? You have logged 30 defects and you have 5 requirements.
5 requirements, yeah.
So the defect density is 30 divided by 5, which is 6. That means per requirement, on an average, you are getting 6 defects. Right?
Yeah.
It's also calculated like how many defects are identified per 100 lines of code as well. Okay, but that is something when it will be looked from the development side, right? So from the development side, it will be checked that, okay, if you have written this many line of code, out of that, how many defects have been identified? So most probably it is going to be checked during the unit testing phase, right? Because in the unit testing phase as well, when the developers will test their code, so they will find the defects, right? So from there, if they are going to find the defect density according to the line of code they have written, so they will use that particular formula. But from the testing side, if you are asked that what is the defect density, so you can say that the number of defects I am finding
by the requirements.
divided by total number of requirements will give me the defect density. Okay. Now, what is the defect removal efficiency? Okay. So that is number of defects found during QA testing divided by number of defects found during QA testing plus number of defects found by the end user into 100%. Okay. So number of defects that you are finding during your testing divided by number of testing that is you have found plus number of defects that the customer is finding into 100. Right? So that will give you defect removal efficiency. And finally, the defect leakage. So what is the defect leakage? Defect leakage is number of defects found in UAT, that is user acceptance testing. So who does this UAT?
User. The user.
Yeah. So the customer will do this UAT.
The customer. Yeah.
So that means from your side, you have completed the testing.
Yeah.
So number of defects that are found during UAT divided by number of defects found in QA testing into 100. Right? So this will give you the defect leakage. So the more this, count will be, that means the efficiency of QA testing is low, right? Because if the customers are finding more defects, that means some issue was there in your testing, right? It might happen that there were some issues in the process itself. The requirement was not communicated properly. That might be another reason. But one reason could be you are not able to test or you are not able to find those defects during your testing. And that's why the customers are now finding it. Okay. This is very important. Okay. Like in the interview, they might ask you what is defect leakage. This is very important, like metric, because during the UAT or during the deployment phase, if they are finding a lot of defect, so they are going to raise the question, because that raises the flag of the quality of the software, right? If they are finding a lot of bugs, so they won't have that much of confidence in the software, right? So then a lot of questions will be raised, a lot of things will be checked. The management will come back to the development and testing team and they will ask you that why are those many defects were leaked, right? So this is a very important question from the interview perspective as well. And even if they ask you what are the different kind of test metrics, please mention this one, defect leakage. I mean, the other ones you need to mention as well, but don't forget to mention this particular.
This is the most important.
Yeah. Because this is very important from the quality perspective as well, right? If you're not able to find those bugs as a QA as well, like when you are testing, you are not able to find those bugs, and the customers are finding those bugs, so you are questionable to that, right? And then finally, the percentage of defects by priority, right? So number of critical defects identified divided by number of total defects identified into 100%. So that will give you the percentage of critical defect or percentage of high priority defect, percentage of medium priority defect, percentage of low priority defect. So the formula is similar. Total number of high priority defect or total number of medium priority defect or total number of low priority defect divided by total number of defect identified into 100. So that will give you the percentage. Right? Any queries till now?
No.
Okay. So these are the different like metrics which will get generated from from your input and from the overall data that is getting generated from the time start writing the test cases and then in the execution phase. So all this data will get generated, and based on this data this particular metrics will get generated. So it's not very complex, right?
Yeah.
Try to remember as many as of them, if because in the interview this part is very crucial.
Okay.
In most of the cases they might ask you that what are the different test metrics that or how do you help to generate those test metrics. So in that case you can say that when I'm executing the test cases, I'm providing the data to my test lead that this many test cases have been written, and out of those this many test cases are executed, this many test cases are failing, this many test cases are passing, this many test cases are blocked, this many defects are found, this many defects are retested and closed, and then like this many defects are being found uh, in the deployment phase or during the UAT phase. So from there I am getting this kind of defect leakage, and now if the defect leakage is very high, so in that case we need to see where are we missing, whether we are missing in the requirement gathering, requirement analysis phase, or whether we have missed some of the test cases while writing the test cases, and that's why there were less test coverage, and that's why we didn't test a particular requirement, and that's why the defects are coming during the UAT phase from that particular requirement. So this will be different kind of answer that you can give during your interview. Okay. And finally, the agile metrics. So some of this we already covered during our last session. So velocity. So velocity is we mentioned that this will give you this is a metric which will tell you that how much work a team can take during a particular sprint. Okay, because remember we talked about the story points, right? So for each story there will be some story points, and suppose the whole team is taking kind of 10 to 12 stories in that particular sprint. So the number of total story point will give you the velocity, right? So if it's say 35 or 40, so that means that team can take around 35 to 40 story points in each sprint, right? Now suppose in the next sprint, okay, so this is on an average, like on an average it can be plus minus 5 or plus minus 8, but it should be around a certain number. So suppose in the next sprint when you are doing your estimation, and suppose you are getting that the overall velocity is coming as 50 or 60, which is say 25 more than the average velocity. So that means the work that has been taken by the team is much more than their actual capacity, right? So that means the the scrum master or the product owner, they will see that whether the estimation has been done in proper way or not, whether more work has been given to the team, and it might occur that at the end of the sprint the team won't be able to complete all the tasks that has been given to them. So in that case they will bring some of the user stories or some of the tasks to backlog from the current sprint.
Mhm.
It might also happen that after the estimation and all the things are done, the velocity is suppose 15, only 15 or 20, whether the average velocity of your team is 35 or 40. So that means there is less work that is given to the team, right? The team can take more work, right? So in this way, this uh, metric will help the management to understand what is the load on the team, what kind of work or how much work that the team is taking on a particular sprint, right? Is it clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Next is lead time. So lead time is total time from the story starting point until it is completed as part of the sprint. Okay. So the time that you are taking to complete a particular story, right? So it might happen that you have taken a story on a sprint and your sprint is of say 10 days. You are starting working on that particular story on the 5th day and you are completing that on the 8th day, right? So that means you have taken only 3 days to complete that. It's not that you have taken entire 8 days to complete that story, right? So that gives you the lead time. So although the story has been completed on the 8th day of the sprint, but you have started working on that from the 5th day. So total time from the story starting point to until it's completed as part of the sprint, that gives you the lead time.
Yeah.
Okay. Cycle time is how long it takes to go from start to finish, right? So cycle time is from the day the sprint starts to the uh, day you finish that particular story. Now it might also happen that you have started working on that particular story on this sprint, and at the end of the sprint you are not able to complete that particular story for say any reason. So there is a bug, you are not able to execute that particular test case, so the bug has to be fixed by the developer and then you will be able to test it and complete the story, right? So in that case, that particular story will be spilled over to the next sprint, right? Because the sprint will be completed after 2 weeks, right? And the next sprint will get started. So your story will be spilled over to the next sprint. So that will actually help you to give the cycle time, that when it actually started and when it's getting finished. Because if you see the lead time, so in case of the lead time, it will give you that from in this particular sprint when it started. So that won't give you the actual time taken to complete that story. So the cycle time will give you that when you started working on this story, and if the story has spilled over to other sprint, when are you finishing that? Okay. Then the burn down chart. So burn down chart we discussed in the last session. So what is that?
You showed me the chart. Work is being completed. They can track it.
Yes. So at the beginning of a sprint, suppose your team has taken say 42 story points, right? So 42 story points will be at the beginning. Now, after each passing day, the team will complete some of the stories. So the story point will come down, right? And at the end of the sprint, ideally you should complete all the tasks, but practically when we see, there are some tasks which are left. So suppose only 6 story points are left, right? So it will start from the 42 and end at 6. So that will give you a burn down chart, how you have completed the tasks over the time in a sprint. So burn down chart will give you that, right? What is burn up chart? It's completely opposite. So it provides you representation of how much work has been completed versus the total scope of the project, right? So at the beginning of the sprint, you will have completed 0 story point because you are starting from there. And from there, suppose you have completed 35 story points. right? So it will give you the burn up chart. So if I show you,
So they are like two parallel lines.
yeah. So see, this is the burn down chart. At the beginning of the sprint, you had this much story point, and at the end of the sprint, you have completed all the tasks. So that tells you the burn down chart. And what is burn up chart? You started from 0, right? And then over the time, you have completed some of the tasks. So at the end of the sprint, you have completed till this. And what is this? This is the scope. This is the scope of the sprint, right? So if you see here, at the end, you have touched the scope. So that means you have completed all the tasks which were given to you. And if there is a difference between these two, that means there are some work which is left to be completed.
Pending, yeah.
If you see this, so there is a difference between this. So that means this many tasks is left. If you see the same from the burn down chart, this many tasks are left. Right? So ideally it should be like this, but that is ideal thing. That is not practical. So in practical, you will complete like this, and finally you will have some gap, which will tell you how much task is left.
Right.
So that is the difference between burn up and burn down chart. So this comes under the agile metrics as well. So this is an important question as well, because if the interviewer will ask you something on the agile, so they might ask you what are the different agile metrics that you know, right? So in that case, you need to mention, at least mention these 3: velocity, burn down chart, burn up chart. At least mention these 3. You can, avoid lead time and cycle time. If you remember, tell that will be another advantage. If you don't remember, mention velocity, burn down, and burn up chart. Velocity is very important, because if the interviewer is asking you questions regarding agile, right? So they will ask you that what is the how do you, they will start it like, how do you estimate in your project, right? So if they ask you how do you do the estimation, so you remember what did I tell you regarding the estimation? It follows the Fibonacci series numbers. So for each story, you need to give a particular story point based on the complexity and the work that is required for that particular story. Right? So each story or each task will have a story point associated with it, and the story point is given from the Fibonacci series numbers. So what are those numbers? Those are like 1,
The
2,
third number will be
3,
the sum of
5,
the first 2
8.
numbers.
Yes. Yes. And then the total number of story points that is taken by a team gives you the velocity of that team, right? For a particular sprint. Right? So these are the different agile metrics, and these are the different test metrics. So you need to remember, these are the test metrics, right? And these are the agile metrics.
Agile metric.
Yeah. So finally, in conclusion, like after those data is generated, so the test managers or like the test lead, they will generate the status like this. So they will generate different type of graphs, different type of pie chart, and then they will provide these reports to the customer or the stakeholders. So from here you can see percentage of test cases blocked, percentage of test cases failed, percentage of test cases passed, right? test execution status, number of test cases. So there are different type of representation here. Defect status by priority, critical defect, high priority defect, low priority defect, medium priority defect, then the burn down chart and the burn up chart. Right? So in this way, so this burn down and burn up, I showed you, right? That from the reports in Jira, this gets generated automatically. So you can directly send the link to the customer and they can check from there. Okay.
Thank you.
So that was all for today. Any questions from your side?
No. It's pretty simple, this one.
Yeah. So try to, go through it once. And then if you have any query, you can ask me tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Let's meet tomorrow's session. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.